All right, on this Warhammer 40k tournament recap, we have day 2 of the Tacoma 2025 US Open. And I'm going to be going over today 3 of my games, rounds 4, 5, and 6. And essentially going over what worked in these games, what didn't work, and simply passing that knowledge on to you, because I really do believe one of us gets better, we all get better. So if that's something that interests you, stick around, because we're going to be going over tactics, strategies, that sort of thing, what I learned. And even if you're not a Necron player, or you're relatively new to the game, I really do think this video will help you out and give you some insight into your next game, maybe coming up later this week or this weekend. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is day 2 of the Tacoma Open, and spoiler alert, rounds 4, I played Chaos Knights. Round 5, I played Chaos Knights. And round 6, I played Thousand Suns. So now we are getting into the thick of this. The fun games are over, and we are starting to get into the top of the meta here. Okay, so going into this matchup, this was a very interesting Chaos Knights list. It is Lords of Dread. It is one of the 2 detachments that I think is roughly up there on the meta. I think the other one is something Lance that a lot of people are playing as well. But Lords of Dread, the biggest thing you need to worry about is everything is +2 OC, which is super strong. So the big knights are OC 12. And the little knights are like OC 8 or something like that. And the tough part with the big knights is even when you bracket them, they're still OC 7, which is a pretty big break point. Now, what you're seeing before I put up the score here on this game is we're playing Hidden Supplies. And Hidden Supplies, Crucible of Battle, Layout 6. And I want to talk through kind of what's going through my mind before this game, and how to approach this matchup in the current state that Knights are in. I think we would all hope that maybe they get some sort of hot fix here coming up pretty soon, but who the heck knows? But this is what we're playing right now. So going into the matchup, the biggest thing with Chaos Knights is a little bit more doable for Necrons compared to the IK matchup, just because of the fact that he's not running a Lancer in this, so I don't have to worry about a 4-up invul, which sometimes is just really hard to punch through, and don't have to worry about the 6-up feel no pain, so they're a little bit less durable. But the one nice thing about Chaos Knights is they do have a legit more longer range anti-tank, especially if the IK player isn't running Helvrins or something like that. You can kind of play a different game against those lists, just because your DDAs can outrange their shooting platforms, and you can kind of really hopefully hold them back a little bit. But played against Anthony the first game. This guy was a great opponent, super knowledgeable. He's like an OG Knights player, which was great. Not just like hopping on the bandwagon, that sort of thing. So that was like really cool, and just got to get a great rep into Chaos Knights. So going into this matchup, as far as deployment, we have the Flayed Wind stage up behind the wall here, just to give me flexibility to come out if I need to, as like if I have a knight that's like almost dead, the Flayed Ones can maybe come out and do those last 4 or 5 wounds and potentially pick up a big. We have all of our synergistic pieces, like our Reanimator, Race, Catacomb Command Barge, because I was here because I couldn't fit it, to hide right here to essentially hold our primary down, or just try to hold our 10s. Just because this mission is going to be a little tricky for me, just because with Hidden Supplies, he has the luxury of like just parking one of his big knights on both objectives, which is super strong. So he's like, hey, I hold both of these, they're OC 10, like, what do you want to do about it? But we have some good counters, like the Tomb Blades are really clutch in this matchup because they're OC 6, so it helps deny his sticky. And the same thing with the Ophidians that you see back here. They're also very clutch in this matchup because, again, they can up down, they deep strike, and they're also OC 6. So it does kind of force him in a way where he does need to respect that and maybe not push potentially as hard, because there are ways that I can deny his sticky and that sort of thing. So going into the game, and again, these aren't going to be like, because we're covering 3 games, I want to not take up a ton of your guys' time and just kind of get to the nitty gritty of like the highlights and kind of what we learned here. So going through the match, one thing that really helped me was that he went first. I don't know. I am on the bandwagon that right now I think challenger cards need to get fixed a little bit. I don't think it's like completely breaking the game, but going second with challenger cards, I'm not gonna lie, it feels really good right now. And I would be the first to say I don't know if I win both of my Chaos Knight matchups had I not gone second. But tough to say, but I think it definitely did help. So Anthony's going to get first turn. He gets Secure No Man's Land and Recover Assets. So you're going to see him move up 2 War Dogs, get Secure, get Recover Assets. Super easy. Pass it over to me. And going to my first turn, this was really tricky because I was like, all right, he's got 2 War Dogs in front of me. And I know the play pattern. It's like, all right, like, do you want to shoot at the War Dogs and, you know, try to get them off the table? And then you're going to get clapped by, you know, the 2 bigs this turn. But I think the biggest thing that I was kind of surprised that he didn't do is he didn't push up with more stuff. It was just the 2 War Dogs. And I feel like he maybe respected my shooting. And we talked about this after the game more than I think he should have. But going into this bottom of turn 1, we do get Sabotage and Overwhelming Force. So the cards were kind of telling me, like, let's just try to kill these War Dogs. And I was like, I don't know if this is like 100% the right play, but let's just go for it. So we essentially move the DDAs and firing lanes here, and the Mineers have flexibility to either fire at this War Dog here or here. And then the flayed ones have the flexibility to charge in on this War Dog here. So what ended up happening is we get this War Dog down to 2 wounds, and the flayed ones end up charging in and kill the last War Dog here. So we end up getting 1 on Overwhelming Force and 1 on Sabotage, and we pass it back over to Anthony going into turn 2. Now, what was super clutch here is essentially he's going to start shifting up. And because this War Dog was on 2 wounds, I just told him ahead of time, like, hey, if you move this War Dog, like, I'm definitely going to Overwatch, like with a DDA. And he's like, yeah, no, that makes sense. And so we end up Overwatching the DDA, get a 4 on the shots, and 1 goes through and actually pop the War Dog. So I think in those situations, that worked out for me like a couple times in this tournament. Don't be shy to Overwatch with the DDA. I mean, if it involves points or it's going to cause you problems, I think in general it's a pretty good idea because you're getting rid of a resource on his turn, especially if you only need just 1 of those to go through. And the fact that you're wounding on a 2-up, and he's going to be saving on a 5. So, you know, if it had like 6 wounds left, I don't think it's worth it. But genuinely, if you just need that 1 shot to go through, a lot of times it usually is worth the Overwatch. So going into turn 2, this is essentially the board state where we have race up here. They're just like parking lot in the objective. I can't remember if we rapid. I think we rapid ingressed this this DDA in, or maybe I brought it in. I can't quite remember. And then we ended up moving the Silent King back because he had all this shooting, right? So I essentially wanted to make sure that he couldn't kill the king that next turn and just basically just feeding him DDAs, because I felt like at this point I was in a fairly good spot just getting 2 of those War Dogs off the table early, and just limiting his board control, limiting his pieces that can do actions. And we ended up actually giving him a 0 on primary going into his turn because of the fact that this War Dog actually battle shocked. And he didn't hold any of the midfield objectives. So that was actually like huge, which definitely helped. So he gave me a 0 on my turn by moving up. I think he moved up this like rampage, or even though it's on the objective, or maybe he had another unit on there. I can't quite remember, just because I didn't take as many pictures because obviously like I'm traveling, but you guys kind of get the idea of the game. Now, fast forwarding here, basically going through, just to speed things along here is, you know, he's pushing up. You know, he definitely did a decent amount of damage to my stuff throughout the game. And I think it was more or less just a story of I just was able just to score really well in the late game. I mean, you see here, was able to get a challenger card, and we ended up having a bottom turn score of 23 points, which was huge. And was just able to get on, you know, 3 objectives, you know, get cleanse, get defense stronghold super easily, and that was pretty much the game against Anthony in these Chaos Knights. So I think the biggest thing we talked about in this game was the fact that I think he could have pushed a little bit early or a little bit earlier, because I just don't have a super reliable way outside of the DDAs to kill a big. Like even with the -1 damage, 3 DDAs and the king full auras up is probably still not enough to kill a big. It's very close. And so this was essentially the board state going to the end of the game. So we end up holding this objective. These two objectives, race, fulfilled their points, just being a tar pit, holding these pretty much most of the game, and then swinging them at the end of the game to complete it. So that was, oh yeah, and then just taking a picture of his sweet freaking rampager there was great, man. The armies, like painting wise this weekend, were just so good. It was so cool to see. So moving on into round 5. Round 5, day 2. Here we go. So it is against Chaos Knights again. All right. So we're going to flip over to this board here, and similar story. Kylan is going second again on Scorched Earth, which honestly is on particularly strong, but there were some crazy sequences in this game. So the first being, and also Josh was a great opponent. And we were just super transparent back and forth. He was like an avid watcher of the channel as well. And, just appreciate the support, man, if you're watching this. And it was just a great game against you. And yes, same more or less strategy, right? They have a little bit of longer range shooting, have to respect it. But we're looking for that opportunity to kind of pop that one knight early and see what we can do. So he did move up his Lancer here, turn 1 with the 4-up invul, and I just let him know, I'm like, hey, where he is standing right now, like DDAs could potentially get a line through here and here. I'm just letting you know if that's okay. And he's like, yeah, no, that's fine. So we end up taking it. So we on this matchup, we actually deployed all 3 DDAs just so I could have like the max firepower, because in his list he didn't have as long range of anti-tank. So I could use that to my advantage. That's one thing when you're playing IK and Chaos Knights to look out for, is really getting the knowledge of what their weapon profiles are ahead of time and what the range is, and deploying around that, especially with the DDAs, because that's the one thing that you can expose. Like, it's super valuable if the DDAs can stay there and respect a firing lane and forcing them to come into it. And that's exactly what we did. So the DDAs line up, and we all fire at the Lancer. Now, pains me to say this. So, first DDA fires, rolls a 6. 7 shots. 6 hits, 6 wounds. Josh goes to roll his saves in this dice box, as you see right over here. He rolls it. I don't see a single 4-up. I don't even say anything. I just like walk away from the table. It's like, so it was, he did have -1 damage, so it wasn't 24 damage, but 1 DDA did 18 damage to this Lancer, man, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man. So that was not good. That was not good for Josh. He was not expecting that. And we fired the other 2 DDAs and a Locust Destroyer, and I think we end up getting the Lancer down to, 3 wounds or 4 wounds, which was about as expected. Or sorry, not as expected. Not against the Lancer. Maybe it's a big 5-up, but so the Lancer is still alive going into the turn, but it's basically dead. Okay. So going into turn 2, he is going to get a 10 on primary because he holds his natural. He passes battle shock test, but he gets established Locust and bring it down. Okay. Now this was the wild sequence. So the Lancer moves up here, charges into the DDA, does not kill the DDA with -1 damage. Like, it was super painful, man. Like that should just not happen. So he bounces off the DDA, and basically in this match, he loses the Lancer for nothing at the top of turn 2. So if you're wondering why the board state looks like this, that's why. So it gave the flexibility for the Ophidians to drop in and to deny his sticky here. That's something that I was talking about earlier that's super clutch in this mashup. And don't be afraid to use them early. Like when it involves points, especially when you're the person going second and you're able to deny them primary, it's super valuable. And you're also creating a screen as well in the process. So now all of a sudden you've screened all the way back here in this part of the board because he has one other knight in reserve or deep strike that could come in. So we end up moving this Locust Destroyer over here to essentially screen out this area. We have flayed ones protecting the middle, and we don't really give him any good options to drop in his big knight. So this is what it looks like essentially bottom of turn 2. I think that was, again, I think the biggest thing in this matchup as well, I think opponents, they look at 3 DDAs in the king. And the best thing is I can kill one of them, but I can't kill all of them. So I feel like if they do push all of their bigs forward, it creates, I think, more of a problem because even though DDAs are threatening, it's just not enough output to kill everything. And then I think potentially we just fold. But going into more of the game here. So this is towards the end of the game. Didn't take like a ton of pictures, but a decent amount. Let me see here. So yeah, this is going into like turn 3, turn 4, and kind of the same story where we're trying to, the Tomb Blades are doing stuff, doing some jank, getting some primary, doing some move blocking. Same kind of thing over here. Race are holding down this objective. And then towards the end of the game, it really comes down to, it was getting really close. Like, it was closer than the score indicates, despite all those things going bad. But it basically came down to me getting assassinate, area denial, and making sure that I killed this big on the last turn. And this is what it takes to kill a big if you're Necrons. Like I had to take a picture of this. I'm like, man, we got to fire all the DDAs. Like, King's got to go in, tank shock, race, flayed ones. Like, no chance whatsoever. And despite all of my shooting, the King charging in with tank shock, he still wasn't dead. And so I still had like the race to attack and the flayed ones, because the King charging in, it was the last turn. That's why I took a picture of this. The King charged in. Oh yeah, this is what it was. The King charged in. He had 4 wounds left. I do 0 damage. There was just crazy sequences in this game. That's why I took a picture of it. It was like wild. That just happens in Warhammer sometimes. That's what you have to plan for. Like, things could just like, you try to plan for the worst case scenarios in your head, but like even that was kind of hard to plan for. I'm like, man, with the tank shock, I should at least be able to get 1 or 2 wounds through, and that just 0 was, I was like, wow, okay. So that essentially concluded the match against Josh. That's essentially the board state at the end of the game, and we end up edging that one out 85-77. So super good game. And we're feeling good. Currently right now we are 4-1. We dropped against the jail list, which was that was a tough loss, but a lot of learning opportunities for me there and like how to handle it. And then this was one of the matches going into round 6 that I was definitely most nervous for, and that was the sweeping engagement Terraform matchup. All right, and of course, I'm playing against my fellow teammate, James. James, I know you'll be watching this probably eventually, but it was great playing you, man. And it was awesome. Super chill game. We couldn't have asked for like a better matchup in round 6, just because like your brain's kind of fried at this point, and you're kind of just looking to get through the game. And I was just glad we like both match up into each other, and we haven't played each other before, believe it or not. So the stars aligned, and we were both like very just transparent back and forth. We just wanted a good game. We kind of knew like it was definitely a first turn favor type of layout and mission. And, sometimes that just happens. So, going into the game here, let's flip it over. So we unfortunately have to take the L against the T-Suns. And there are some good things to talk about on this game that I actually want to talk about just in deployment, okay? So in this match, we're playing layout 3, sweeping engagement, so you can see essentially the deployment here and the deployment here, right? That's a terrible way to do that. There we go. Okay. So essentially what we're looking at here is, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made is I left too many units off the board. And you're going to see like how this unfolds in the pictures, but I want to kind of preface like ahead of time just so you guys can visually see and like how I go back and reflect on my losses, because that's where you can really learn the most. I mean, even in your wins too, for sure. But losses, like I think there's more things you can pick up on that you could have done better. So going into this match, I didn't have the luxury to deploy all 3 DDAs because you can't really keep it out of line of sight. Okay. Now, the other problem is that you want to keep the command barge and the Silent King with the Horus. And having a DDA on both sides, I was like, okay, cool. Like I can have, I can cover this firing lane down here. I can cover this firing lane down here, or they can scoot and cover here. I mean, there's shooting lanes everywhere. That's why one of us wanted to go first, especially on Terraform, because, I mean, literally you can just move out and just fire away, like on either side. I mean, it's brutal. And especially against T-Suns, they're like, yo, Necrons, we don't care about your invul. We don't care at all. All right. So first thing I should have done better in deployment is the King and the DDA should have been switched. And the reason for that is because you're going to see this unfolds. Like he was able to push a lot harder up this field to interact with my home objective, where I could have put the King here with the hex mark and then still have the barge here to be able to swing either way, and keep things out of LOS. But by having the DDA there, it kind of complicated things. And the other thing is I kept a Locust Destroyer and the Tomb Blades off the board, when in hindsight, both of those units should have deployed. I think the only thing I should have had in this matchup in reserve was a DDA. And so going into the match, you're probably wondering, okay, why are the Flayed Ones here? And the reason for that is because T-Suns right now with the Grand Coven, the Infernal Master that I think has the crystal, I believe it's has it. So a lot of times with T-Suns, what they're looking to do is they're looking to bring up that crystal unit and drop them down aggressively turn 1 if they see like a really good target, because essentially they can drop it in outside of 9 and then they can temporal shift for another 6, so they can get within 3. So pretty much they can get lines on anything turn 1 if you're not careful or you don't screen it out. And the biggest thing is I didn't want him interacting with this stuff over here turn 1, because that unit could literally drop down and potentially pick up the DDA and the hex mark for free. So by putting the Flayed Ones here, you're essentially creating a screen where he doesn't want to do any of that here. And obviously he can drop down here, but there's nothing that is going to be like a prime target for him outside of like race. And then he just like definitely loses the unit. So that's why they're there. So let's see how this game unfolds. So James goes first, also on Terraform. And you're going to see how basically the first turn looks. So he cleans up the Flayed Ones. He had goats that came out and scouted and essentially lined this objective here. And then the race came out, so we put OC6 objective on here, and we terraformed, and then we were able to not deny his terraform here. So he was able to double terraform turn 1, and then also hold these objectives. So you're seeing here. So pretty good turn for James there. Turn 1, and then pass it over to me, and this is essentially the board state. And we unfortunately don't end up killing the goats. We had Mark for Death and Storm Hostile turn 1, and the goats were my Mark for Death. So we didn't actually get it, so we were able to cycle it for a CP, which was fine. And then the Locust Destroyer is able to deny this central point here. Okay. Going into the middle part of the game, so you're going to see kind of slowly what's happening here is going into turn 2, Magnus is able to draw line of sight with his wings. I mean, it's just so hard to hide this layout, especially against T-Suns. And the Vortex Beast moves up. You're going to see here that the Crystal Brick ended up dropping in turn 2 because he got Overwhelming and Sabotage, so he was going to try to kill the Hex Mark. Didn't end up actually killing him, which was huge. And then he shifted up more resources up here, and the Vortex Beast moved up, and that was pretty much his turn. So he really did a good job starting to whittle down these assets here. And then, this was actually, I believe, did he pop? Yeah, so he actually popped my DDA. So he popped a DDA, he popped the 2 Miniers, and he almost killed the Hex Mark in my turn 2. Because I ingressed in this DDA right here. Okay. So this is the middle of the game. We don't end up actually killing the Infernal Master. That was super painful. We did clear up some goats right here on my turns, so we got secure and no prisoners for 5 because we killed this guy. We killed some goats that were right here, and then we killed this brick right here. Okay. And then going into the middle part of the game, turn 3, you're just going to kind of see, this is just good for you guys to see just like play pattern, right? Here, genuinely, I just don't know what I was doing. The race just should have like stayed back here. It wasn't like game defining by any means, but I was like, maybe I can push these race up and like get a cool charge off and then like pile in on this like objective here. But the problem is the Crypto Thralls are just kind of weighing them down because they're not dead, and he didn't target the race, so there was no way to like flip flop the Crypto Thralls to the front of the unit. And then the massive like misplay with the Tomb Blades. Like again, they should have just been deployed on the board in this game, and you're kind of seeing how this unfolds. Like where if I had the Locust Destroyer and the Tomb Blades, I could have slowed this part down another turn, which would have been huge, or just like something to screen over here. But instead, they weren't utilized for anything. So you're seeing like, it's cool to talk to you guys about like, hey, how games can single-handedly just be lost in deployment, and how they create these problems like later in the game to look out for. So he was able to push over here and really just push this flank here where I couldn't interact with it. And at that point, I'm like in my headspace where I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna kind of look at this as like a teams format and see like how many points I can just scrap away at this point. And at least, we're holding this side of the board, we're getting points there and trying to score where we can. And this is essentially what the board state looks like at the end of the game. I think this was actually the final picture I got. So this was it. So ended up the race moving up here towards the center at the end of the game, getting overwhelming force and extend battle lines because we held one in the center. And then that was pretty much the game. So James edged this one out 91-73. We'll totally take that. It's a tough matchup for the Krons, let alone on this layout. And it's tough, man, because like games 3 and 6 were definitely the ones that were going to be like trouble missions for me. I mean, supply drop, you just never know. And then like with this layout sweeping engagement, I did practice it a couple times. I didn't get a rep on this layout like against T-Suns, but I more or less know what the army does. But James played it really well, and overall, I think he did really well in the tournament. I think he was definitely top 50. I think he was like 45th or something. He went like 6-2. So kudos to him, and can't wait for our next game, man. But other than that, this is day 2 recap. Drop a comment below, let me know what you thought, and seriously, again, if you stuck around this long, appreciate you watching, and we will catch you in the next one.